Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ergonomically Speaking, the podcast that aims to help you reduce and even eliminate work related discomfort with myself, Eve Pentony from Boyne Ergonomics. So, episode 2, all about posture. What is posture, and why am I so obsessed with it, and why you should be too? The reason I chose this as the first of the main episodes is because posture is a word you're going to hear me say over and over again in every episode from here on forth, because it is what we as ergonomic professionals focus on to try and reduce your risk of injury and discomfort. And what is posture? So, posture is the positioning of your body relative to the force of gravity. Now, when I am talking about posture in a work related setting, I'm talking about positioning. The positioning of your limbs, the positioning of your head relative to your spine. So the spine is the focus. Everything else revolves around the spine. The reason being that it is your spine that facilitates your movement. It is your spine that allows you to be upright. And the spine is designed in the way it is with these curves and with the vertebrae and with the discs to allow for this movement and to give you that strength and mobility that we need just to live our day to day lives. So, when I am talking about posture, what I mean is your positioning relative to your spine positioning and the positioning of your limbs. So, ideally, because we are generally upright creatures, ideally, for your spine to be in a neutral position, you want to have ear over shoulder over hip. Your spine is supposed to be curved. So if you are in a posture that is flattening those curves or is exacerbating those curves, you're going to cause yourself a problem. So just remember, when I'm talking about posture, I'm talking about positioning. Really, that's what I mean. And there's two types of posture that we have. So we have our static postures, which, as it sounds, it's our posture when we're not moving the whole body. So, for example, in a work related setting, I'm talking about sitting at your desk on a computer. I'm talking about sitting in your car, standing at an assembly line, or standing at a pick pack station, or even just very simply standing at your desk if you have a sit stand desk. So your whole body is mostly staying still. So that's just static posture. And then we have your dynamic postures. And again, as it sounds, your dynamic posture is your posture when you're mobile. So, for example, when you're walking, swimming, running, when we are mobile, the whole body systems are working together to keep you balanced and to keep you mobile. And in a work related setting, your dynamic postures, believe it or not, can tie in with your static postures. So, your dynamic postures, yes, it could be when you're mobile and work if you're walking to and from another place or if you're lifting something to put it somewhere else, but it can also be postures of your limbs. So, when the spine and when the main body itself is static, you can then have dynamic postures of the limbs. So, your hand when you're using your mouse and your shoulder, your fingers and your hand when you're typing. It could be, again, if you're working on an assembly line, it could be reaching for components, packing components. The main body is static, but the limbs are mobile. So dynamic postures can tie in with static postures. Um, and again, it all centers around the spine. So positioning is really, really important for both static and dynamic postures. And they play in with each other a little bit, which I'll get into a little bit more in a few minutes. Other words you're going to hear, other phrases you're going to hear related to posture is good postures, bad postures. Now, these terms are relative and they totally depend on the task that you're doing. A good posture for one task could be a really bad posture for another task. So, when I'm talking about a good posture, what I mean is it's a neutral posture for that specific task, in that there is no one area of the body that is under excess strain when you're completing that task. So that for me would be a good posture for that task. And then a bad or an adverse posture would be when you're completing a task and there is one or more particular areas of the body that are under additional strain and it's unnecessary strain. And there are tweaks we could make to reduce that strain. So when I say good posture, it's very much task specific. The posture is suitable for the task being done. It's the lowest risk posture. And then an adverse or your bad posture would be a posture that presents a higher risk of injury when you're doing that task. And they tie in, like the good and the bad ties in with the static and the dynamic. There is a complicated relationship, which is why we always make it very specific to the task and very specific to the person. So, for example, I'll take the computer workstation because it's the easiest one and it's the most common one. If you are sitting at what I would call a good or neutral position at your computer workstation, very good. There's least amount of strain on any particular part of the body. You're nice and upright and everything's nice and close to you. However, that is a static posture. And if you hold it for prolonged periods, so for me, I'm talking over 45 minutes, then yes, you are going to feel some ill effects because your body is still under strain. If you are sitting at what I would call, a poor or bad posture at a computer workstation, which I'll get into down the line, and you sit there for prolonged periods, well, then your risk of discomfort and injury has increased even further because you're in a bad posture. There are parts of your body that are under strain, and then you're holding this position for a prolonged time, which means you're going to get strain and fatigue in your muscles. So, again, your risk of injury is higher. Now, if you're doing dynamic posture, so say, for example, you're on an assembly line or you're on a packing line, and everything is the right height, everything is nice and close, but you're moving this one, for example, your right arm, you're moving one particular side over and over again, and you're not giving yourself adequate rest breaks, you're not changing sides, well, then of course you're going to have strain on that side, even if you're in a good posture and everything is nice and close. Your risk of injury, then, of course, is going to increase if you're doing these repeated dynamic postures without breaks and without changing positions. And also, things are further away from you. You have to lean, you have to reach further, you have to reach higher, or the load is heavy. So there's lots and lots of things that play in when we're looking at posture. So it's not just as simple as, oh, that person's sitting fine. We have to take into account, well, what are you doing? How long are you doing it for? And are there any pre existing conditions? Ideally, no posture should be held for prolonged periods because any posture, good or bad, repeated or static, if it's held and repeated for too long, you are going to have fatigue in the muscles and you are going to have strain. Now, I should point out that these statements and what I'm talking about is very much related to work tasks. Exercise is a totally different matter. Of course, if you're out for a walk or for a jog, you could be out for more than 45 minutes, and that's absolutely fine. Or if you're doing weight training, of course, you're going to have a wide range of motion and you're going to be lifting weights in different positions. That is very different from work related tasks. When we're exercising, we want to stress the body. We want to stress the musculoskeletal system, the circulatory system, and the respiratory system because we are trying to train them and trying to improve them. That is very different from what we're trying to achieve when we're working. So, when I'm talking about the negative impacts of static postures or the negative impact of dynamic postures, I am purely talking about in the work related setting, not in the exercise related setting. And why do I care so much about posture? Why are ergonomists and human factors specialists and health and safety specialists so obsessed with posture? Well, numerous studies have shown that poor posture can have a really negative impact on the whole body and also psychologically. So, when you think about the impact of poor posture, so of sitting in a poor posture, of sitting for too long, of repeatedly lifting heavy loads in awkward positions, the first thing you think of is the impact that it's going to have on your musculoskeletal system. So, for example, if we take a static posture, if you're sitting or standing in the one position for too long, so if you're at your desk for periods of more than an hour, or if you're sitting in the car and you're driving, you are familiar with that stiffness. When you go to leave the car or when you go to get up from the desk, there will be a stiffness, there will be a tightness. And that's caused by what I call static loading, where your muscles are contracted, especially the muscles in your back and your hips. They're contracted to keep you upright. That's their job. No matter how good the chair you're sitting in, the muscles in your back have to work just to keep you upright. They're basically fighting against the force of gravity to pull you down. So they're contracted to keep you upright. When muscles contract, they use energy. And what is a natural byproduct of this energy use is lactic acid. So as you're sitting there, although it doesn't feel like a physical workout to you, the muscles in your back when you're sitting at your desk are working hard to keep you upright. They're building up lactic acid. Now, because you're static, your circulation will slow down, which I'll get to in another point, but your circulation will slow down. which means that the lactic acid is not removed from the muscles as effectively as it would be if you were, say, for example, out for a walk. And what happens then is that lactic acid starts to impact the muscle fibers, and that's where you get fatigue, tightness, inflammation, and that feeling of strain and stiffness when you go to leave your desk or your car, or you go to move from your packing station if you've been in the one position for too long. So it's caused that kind of fatigue is caused by a buildup of lactic acid. Now, couple that with so for example, if you're sitting at a desk for a long time and the muscles start to get fatigued, what happens is your posture starts to suffer. Those muscles cannot keep you upright, and we all do it. You slouch forward, you round the shoulders, or else you lean back in the chair and scoot in the seat. Either way, you stop being upright. Your muscles get tired. They can't keep you in this nice upright position anymore. Ear over shoulder over hip, your posture starts to suffer. When that happens, then you've got the fatigue and the strain on the muscles, but then you're also going to have strain on your tissues. So, on your ligaments, on your tendons, and on the muscles as your body starts to move out of this natural posture and into these more tired and slouched postures. So, you have two different effects then on your musculoskeletal system. Now, one other effect you can have is something we call contact stress. So if you're not sitting, or if you're not standing, or if you're not in the right position for the task that you're doing, you can have contact stress between your equipment. So, for example, your desk and your forearm, if you're using the mouse, you can have different levels of contact stress, and that can also impact your tendons, your ligaments, and your joints, and it can cause strain. So your musculoskeletal system is the first area that I would say poor posture and static posture starts to impact. It get like with dynamic postures, if you're working on an assembly line and you're doing everything with your right hand, if you're right-handed and you're doing everything with the right arm, well, that right arm, that right shoulder, the wrist is going to come under strain, and the left side won't feel it. So again, switching tasks, switching hands, task rotation can all help to bring that down. But the musculoskeletal system is the area where we feel it first. And if you are sitting at a computer workstation, or if you're sitting in your car and you start to notice small levels of discomfort, doesn't have to be anything major, a little bit of stiffness, a little bit of tightness, that is the first signal to you that something is not right with your posture. You're either not in the right posture for the task that you're doing, or you're holding that posture for too long, or you're repeating that posture too many times without a break. So have a look at that. Take a step back and have a look. There, that is your body telling you something is not quite right. A lot of us think that if we're working in a computer workstation, or if we drive, that it's normal and it's okay to feel a little bit of discomfort. You know, every now and then, fair enough. But if this is something you're noticing on a regular basis and it starts to get worse, definitely something needs to be looked at and addressed. The other area, or another area, that poor posture can impact is your respiratory system. So if you think about it, you've got your lungs in your abdomen, and the lungs are quite big. They do take up a lot of space. If you are in a position where you're not fully upright, so again, ear over shoulder over hip, always remember that. If you're out of this posture, and the most common area I see it is people working off laptops. You're leaning forward, the shoulders are rounded, you're compressing the abdomen. So when you inhale, your lungs cannot expand to the volume that they would if you were fully upright, because you've decreased the amount of space available inside your abdomen. Now, what happens there is it starts to impact your breathing. So your breathing will start to become a little bit more shallow, can be a little bit quicker. And that's going to have two effects. One, it can actually impact your musculoskeletal system. It has been shown that when we start to breathe a bit quicker and a bit shallow in this more rounded posture, the lungs, the respiratory system will recruit the muscles of the neck to help with its breathing. So you're putting extra strain on the muscles of your neck. They're doing a job that they shouldn't have to do, and that can cause negative impact down the line. The other effect this kind of change in breathing pattern will have is it's going to trigger your hormone system. It's going to trigger a stress response, which is going to release stress hormones into your body. And I'll get to that point because posture can impact psychologically too. But on a hormonal level, this shallow, quick breathing can trigger a stress response in the body caused by release of the stress hormones. So it is really important to keep ourselves upright. That again, ear, shoulder, hip, to allow our lungs space to expand so we can breathe properly without causing extra strain on our neck muscles and without causing this stress response. Another area that this poor posture can impact, and especially static postures, is our circulation. So, for example, you sit at a desk all day, you're sitting in your chair. Firstly, if you're not sitting in the correct posture for your workstation, what's going to happen is you are going to compromise your blood flow because there's going to be pressure on different parts of your body, especially on the thighs and backs of the knees. I find a lot extra pressure is going to inhibit the circulation in the lower limbs. Now, if you couple that with staying in that position for too long, but of course, your circulation is going to slow down because we're not mobile. The muscles are not pumping the blood around the body as it should because the muscles aren't working. They're not moving. They're not pumping. And this can have a couple of side effects. One is swelling, really, really common in pregnancy as well. Swelling in the lower limbs, in the calves, in the feet, and in the ankles, because obviously your circulation and the fluid movement in your body has slowed down. The other area this can impact is you can actually start to have neurological symptoms, especially again in the lower limbs. So the feeling that maybe your foot's about to fall asleep, a tingling in the legs, a kind of pins and needles feeling. You've either been sat for too long or standing for too long. Again, if standing is your held posture, you can be standing for too long or you're not in the correct position for the equipment that you're using. The equipment's not the right size for you, or you're not in the right posture and it's compromising your blood flow. This can also impact the wrist, again, especially in pregnancy. If you are not at the correct posture for the task that you're doing and you're not using your equipment properly, you can compromise the blood flow, especially to the wrist that's using the mouse. So your right or left, depending on what's your dominant hand. To be honest, most left-handed people do use the mouse with the right hand. So the right hand is the one I see it the most that has the impact. But it can, of course, be the left. But your mouse hand, poor posture encourages poor mouse use. Prolonged use is going to slow down the circulation to that limb. And you can feel it. Sometimes you might get, again, a tingling, a numbness. Cold fingers, cold hands is a really common one too because you've slowed down your circulation. Another system that poor posture impacts is your digestive system. And this is one that not a lot of people think about. Again, I've seen it over the last 20 months or so, really related to laptop use. Because again, when you're working off the laptop or tablets, anything that's low down on the table, you might start upright, but you tend, because you're looking down, to round yourself down, lean the torso forward. And like I was saying, relative to the respiratory system, you're reducing the space available within your abdomen. You're compressing your abdomen down. Now, if you're eating, you're drinking away at your desk, especially, and you're in this rounded posture, well, you're going to slow down your digestive system. It doesn't have the room to operate correctly. You reduce circulation because you're not moving, which you already touched on, means that there's less blood flow to your digestive system. And this can cause it to slow down, which can cause lots of digestive symptoms, such as indigestion, heartburn, constipation, problems going to the bathroom, cramps, that kind of thing, because your digestive system, if you're in a poor posture and if you're in the posture for too long, it cannot function optimally because the blood flow is slowed down to it and also the space for it to act has reduced too. You're compressing it. So this is why it is our optimal posture, whether we're sitting or standing, whatever we're doing, is to be upright, to allow for the space within the abdomen for the organs to function correctly. And another area that poor posture can impact is your mood, psychological symptoms. And this is an area of debate. So, does poor posture cause poor mood? Does poor mood cause poor posture, stress? To be honest, it's cyclical and it varies so much from person to person. Um, of course, when we're stressed or when we're down or when we're under pressure or feeling anxious, our posture will change. We carry a lot of our stress and tension in our neck and shoulders. And secondly, when we're feeling under pressure and feeling stressed and anxious, we feel threatened. And the natural thing that we will do is to make ourselves smaller by rounding in the shoulders, rolling them down, and bringing everything in, tightening everything up. And this is a protective posture. We're trying to protect our well being and our mental health when we feel under pressure and feel under stress. That, of course, is going to cause stress and tension in the muscles and discomfort. But of course, if, for example, your mood is fine and you sit down at your desk on Monday morning and you start to type away, but then you notice that over time you're sitting for too long and your posture is bad, You're going to have stress and tension in your shoulders. You're going to have pain in your back, which is going to affect how you feel. So you're going to feel pain. You're going to feel down. You're going to feel stressed. So it is cyclical, but definitely addressing posture and addressing stress and can help reduce the symptoms and can help to break that cycle of being stressed and feeling pain and being stressed. So this is why I am so obsessed with posture. I have found over the years that simple corrections to improve posture relative to the task that you're doing can help not just how you feel at your workstation and not just how productive you are, but how you feel outside of work in your day to day activities. And it allows you to be more able to carry out the tasks that you want to do. So, whether it's gardening, whether it's going to the gym, everything becomes easier because we spend, if you think about it, think of the hours per week that you spend doing your job. So whether it's a manual job, whether it's in your car because you drive for a living, or whether it's at your desk, our work postures are probably one of the most, aside from sleeping, it's probably one of the most dominant postures we have week to week. And if they are not right and if they are causing you discomfort, well, it's going to impact your whole life. So this is why I find posture so important. This is why I wanted the first of the main episodes to be about posture because my aim as a workplace ergonomics consultant is always to reduce the risk of injury, to reduce stress, to improve productivity by addressing posture. And that's why I wanted this to be the first one because it is so important. And you're going to hear the word posture over and over and over again over the next few episodes for sure as we look at ways to correct it. Um, so I'd like to thank you for joining me. Episode 3 is going to be about DSE posture. So computer workstation posture, what we're aiming for and why. And I really hope you can join me for that. And I will talk to you again soon.